What is going on, everybody? Wanted to hop on here and talk about the one of many incidents that a lot of people are reaching out to me about. The first incident we're going to talk about today, I'm going to do a second video on the next one being the Highland Park shooting in Illinois. But the first thing I'm going to talk about today is the Jayland Walker shooting in Akron, Ohio. A lot of people have some questions about that. Of course, a lot of people reached out asking for my input, being that my law enforcement background. So before I start out, I want to let all of you chime in and let me know where you're tuning in from, city and state. So if you want to let me know, give yourself a shout out. If you're tuning in from outside this nation, please let us know where you're tuning in from, your region, province, whatever it may be. So we're going to get right into it. The Jayland Walker shooting. So for those of you who don't know what happened, maybe you haven't heard the story, which I find it hard to believe if you haven't, but I'm going to just give you a brief overview. And I'm going to go into some of the things that the media, for some reason, hasn't shared, shocking, and some of the things that are coming out that really make a big difference in this story. And I'm going to also give you my opinion on some of the things that I find disturbing about this story. So please, as you're watching, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. If you want to send it out, of course, you can send it out to share either now or afterwards. But most importantly, I want to hear your comments. So make sure you comment. Okay, so here we go. We're going to go into the Jayland Walker, Akron, Ohio. And a lot of people want my insight as an officer. I've been on felony stops before. I've been on motor vehicle stops where someone flees. And there's something I'm going to also address about the Highland Park shooter and Jayland Walker that all people were commenting on social media about. They're completely clueless as to the differences between the two incidents, but I'm going to actually mention that toward the end of this video, so stay tuned for that. So essentially, you have this 25-year-old man who the police are attempting to stop him for a vehicle violation, motor vehicle violation, which is a moving violation, and also for an equipment violation. For those of you who don't know, an equipment violation is something similar to a taillight out or something like that, headlight out. And a moving violation is for something you're doing while operating your motor vehicle, whether it's running a red light, speeding, things like that. So they haven't disclosed yet as to what the moving violation was or the equipment violation was. There's some rumors that are saying that the equipment violation was for a taillight out. And unknown, there's speculation about what the moving violation that occurred that he was apparently guilty of. But anyway, there was a moving violation and an equipment violation, and the officer attempted the motor vehicle stop. The vehicle fled and failed to stop. Officer called in the motor vehicle stop, called in the vehicle, activated the overhead lights and sirens, and the vehicle took off. So the officer indicated to dispatch that he is in pursuit. The vehicle is not stopping, and he gives the location of where he is going. Okay, so that, for the most part, is out there, okay? What happens thereafter is units block off certain ramps and units get ahead of the pursuit. And at some point, multiple units are involved in this pursuit. But prior to that happening, the officer calls out on the radio, and you could actually hear it in his dash cam video. Now, there's some differences. People ask, what are the differences in the videos you're seeing? Some of the videos you're seeing are the body cam from inside the car. Some vehicles have a dash cam that's mounted by the rear view mirror. So, and some of the videos you'll see are obviously outside the car. The body cam will record sometimes when the lights are activated. That automatically sets the recording, and then it usually goes back 30 seconds. The departments can set that to go back 50 seconds, 30 seconds, I believe up to a minute or more. So you're seeing some of the pre stuff in the body cam video because once the sirens were hit, it goes back 30 seconds. Okay, so at one point during the pursuit, there is a shot that can be heard. And the officer goes on the radio to advise dispatch and, of course, all the other officers who are listening to the radio that the driver of the vehicle that he's pursuing just fired a shot toward his vehicle. So just imagine that as a police officer, you're trying to pull someone over. they're not pulling over, and now they're increasing speed and they're trying to get away from you. And as they proceed to do that, next thing you know, you see a flash, a bang, you hear a bang, you see a flash, and they reach out the window and fire a shot at your patrol car. So now, a lot of people had questions. There's a lot of people said, well, how did all the other officers know he was armed? Well, when an officer gets on the radio, I don't know why I'm doing this with my hands because it's not a radio, it's a radio. And when an officer gets on the radio and says, dispatch, driver is fleeing. Okay, that's already indicator of something weird. Okay, dispatch, driver just fired a shot, just shot at me. Okay, so now everything's elevated. All the other officers that are now involved, heading to the area, heading to cut off the vehicle, they all realize now, because they all hear it, it's not only the dispatcher, they all hear that this person in this vehicle just shot at this police officer. And there are clips, I'm going to have the team after the fact loop in the stills, because there was surveillance cameras on buildings where the pursuit was going by, and you could actually see a flash coming out the side of Jayland Walker's vehicle as the vehicles are going down the highway. So, and you could also hear it on the radio. So it is confirmed at this point, all but confirmed, that he fired a shot, and they also found a shell casing in Mr. Walker's vehicle. So allegedly, so we'll see the forensics on that. But so fires a shot, you hear the shot, and you see the flash on the video. Okay, so at this point, we could probably say that he fired a shot at the officer. Continues to go. Now multiple units get involved in the pursuit. And now we have a situation where you have other officers coming to the scene, and now he stops. Okay, he stops the vehicle, and the officers stop behind him. Okay, now they're ordering him to get out of the car. It kind of pulls off to the side of the road, and now they're yelling at him to now get out of the car, stop the car. Right here, it's horrible tactics, because you have what's called crossfire. You have officers from the front, you have officers from the side, you have officers from the back. So we're not going to get into the police tactics of it. I'll let the social media ninjas get into that, who know everything about police work. Okay, but from my experience as a police officer, there were some issues there. Okay, now what happens is you have multiple officers on scene. The car is stopped, and now every officer there knows that this person most likely has a gun, because they shot at this guy, the initial pursuing officer. That's the primary officer. Typically, that's what that's called. The primary officer in the pursuit, who's the one that attempted to stop the car and initiated the pursuit, and was the car right behind the suspect car. That's called the primary officer. So everyone know all the other officers there. Now, there's a total, as we know at this point, there's a total of 8 officers on scene. A lot of you have seen the number of 7 officers. However, that number is incorrect. The reason why you're hearing the number 7, it's because there were 7 white officers on scene. 1 officer was black, something that the media, for some reason, has not been saying publicly. And they're not saying it as if we're not going to find out about who all the officers involved are at some point. Why they're, kind of hiding this fact, I'll let you decide. However, 8 total officers on scene. 7 were white, Caucasian, 1 was black. Of the 8 officers, 1 was a female officer. Okay, so we don't know yet if the female officer is the black officer, or if the female officer is one of the 7 white officers. I'm sure that will come out, but those are the facts that we have right now. So we all know that all these officers now know that this person who is in this vehicle stopped has a gun, because he shot at the officer who was the primary officer. Now, everyone's yelling to, show your hands, show your hands, show your hands. And they apparently don't have eyes on this person's hands. At this point, it's dangerous to be so close to the vehicle and not being able to see the driver's hands, because he has a gun. He has a gun, and he could just shoot you right through the window. So to be approaching that vehicle from multiple angles. You don't know which window he can shoot out of. He could shoot out the back window. He could shoot through the driver's side window. You don't know. Very, very dangerous. So the car then starts moving again, okay, at a slow speed. We now know why the car started moving again at a slow speed. It wasn't that he was intentionally driving away. We now know is the vehicle was still in drive. He came to a stop, but then the vehicle was still in drive. And he went over to the passenger side of the vehicle to exit the vehicle. So when he took his foot off the brake and climbed over to the front passenger seat to go out that door, the vehicle started moving. And so that's when they all began yelling and screaming. And you see in the video that, you know, we've all seen now. And the vehicle's moving slowly ahead. And a lot of people, and some people were saying, oh, he's trying to run the police officers over. No, I'm going to say that he was not trying to run the police officers over. He wasn't even at the wheel. He had left the wheel, left the vehicle in drive, and was now trying to get out of the car. Why? We don't know. Now you have 8 police officers yelling at you to show your hands, exit the vehicle, show your hands, and just pretty much give up, stop. You know, you're running, you just shot at the police, and now they're telling you, okay, stop, it's over. You're stopped, it's over. Well, it wasn't. It goes out the passenger side door. Now, when he comes out now the vehicle's still moving, and he pops out the front passenger side door. Comes out the front passenger side door, and he has a full black, what appears to be a ski mask on, like you would have when you were robbing a store. You know, obviously people don't even wear those masks when they actually go skiing, right? They look like the only people wearing them are people breaking into homes or, you know, robbing stores. So that aside, he had a full black mask on. He gets out of the car. He starts running. Pretty much all the officers there give pursuit, and you see what reports show 2 officers deploy their tasers. As we all know now, tasers are ineffective a lot of the time. So apparently the officers that deployed their tasers, it didn't work. Now it's dark, it's nighttime, he's wearing clothes, sometimes the taser might miss. Sometimes some of the tasers need to have 2 points of contact to discharge. And for whatever reason, the tasers were deployed and they didn't do anything. Happens all the time. Tasers are not foolproof. They're actually very flawed. That's a whole nother story. I did a whole separate video on that. So now they're still giving chase. They try to hit the taser, doesn't do anything. At this point is where things take a turn. And this is another thing. We'll get into all the things the media is saying that are incorrect, and now it's proven by video. At this point, he turns around and he faces the officers. And you could see in the video, it looks like he's wearing like a hoodie like this. His hands are by his waist. And they're, of course, yelling, screaming. Now, mind you, keep in mind, now, it isn't until after the fact we get some information about a weapon. But in that moment, all you know is you're running after a guy who just shot at a police officer and now is running with a mask on. He has a gun. That's your assumption. He has a gun on him. He turns, his hands are at his waist, and what happens? He moves his arm up. You see it in the still photo. His hands are at his waist, right at his like belt line, and then one hand comes up. The police officers start firing. And this is the point where I 100% disagree with what happened. It appears multiple officers. I don't know yet if every single officer fired their weapon. We don't know. We'll get that all after the ballistics reports. However, they're saying 90 shots were fired. Assuming each officer has 15 rounds in their magazine and 1 in the chamber, you're going to assume that, I'm speculating, I don't even know what kind of weapons they carry, but I'm speculating that each officer of the 8 officers had 16 rounds on them. Speculating, we'll figure that out later. but they had the potential to have 16 rounds, maybe more, maybe less. I don't know. When I was on patrol, I had a gun that only carried 8 rounds. So 90 shots were fired. That we know. 90 shots were fired, and it appears 60 shots hit Mr. Walker. What you see in the video that is damaging, that I feel is going to very much hurt the police in this scenario, is that from what I could roughly estimate, it sounds like at least 20 to 25 plus shots were fired after Mr. Walker was on the ground, laid out flat. It appeared that he was clearly dead, but you never know. You absolutely don't know. Someone can be laying on the ground and appear dead, and they could still be holding a weapon. And we've all seen it in the movies where like the guy gets shot and he looks like he's dead, and then the good guy walks up to the bad guy, and next thing you know, he turns over and pulls a gun out and shoots. We've all seen that, and all that happens in real life. We've seen it happen in real life. So you have this young man who gets shot and then goes to the ground, and it appears that a few dozen more shots are fired into his body while on the ground. Now, ballistics will be able to tell, based on entry angle and based on where the officers were firing from, how many bullets went into him while he was standing upright, and then how many bullets went into him from a downward trajectory while he was down on the ground. In my opinion, there was an overwhelming amount of rounds that were shot while he was on the ground, not moving. Now, once the subject goes down, the training dictates that you want to make an assessment, right? You want to make an assessment. Are they down? Are they any longer a threat? Do they still have a weapon in their hand? You have to give further commands. Are they still moving? You got to make that assessment. The one officer yelled ceasefire after what appeared to be about another 20, 25 rounds were fired while he was on the ground. And you see the one officer put his fist up to say ceasefire. And that's when the shooting stopped. I don't agree with that. It seemed like there was just an enormous amount of rounds shot while he was on the ground. But there's adrenaline, we know. There's the fear because he had a gun. He shot at one of the officers. A lot of things go into this. Okay, let's not go into the Monday morning quarterback there. That's just my experience as an officer, being in situations similar to this. Obviously not exactly like this, but your adrenaline is going, right? And there's a lot of things going through your head. And survival kicks in because, right, you don't want to die. And that's where it ends. Now, we're going to talk about what they found. What they found on the front passenger seat of Mr. Walker's vehicle was what is said to be a loaded firearm, an extra magazine, fully loaded, and a gold wedding band. Apparently, more's coming out, but apparently he just had a breakup from his fiance. So I don't know if Mr. Walker was suffering from some sort of psychological depression episode, if this was a suicide by cop. I don't know. Okay. So from what I have read thus far, and I've done a lot of research over the last 24 hours, it appears Mr. Walker had no criminal record, no criminal background. And that's what I'm hearing. That's what his attorney has said. And that's what I'm hearing. There are some other reports that are saying that Mr. Walker somehow was maybe on probation or something and was not supposed to be in possession of a firearm, and maybe that's why he ran. Once again, that's all hearsay. We're going to let this all come out and let all the facts come out. But from what I understand, and based on what the family's attorney is saying, Mr. Walker had no criminal record. So I don't think the attorney is going to go out in front of all the news cameras with the family and make a statement like that, unless he knew for a fact that Mr. Walker had no criminal record. You would think he would do a little quick, records pull to see if that's true. We'll find out soon enough if it is true. Now, you have the weapon that's found on the seat. You have the loaded magazine. Apparently, there's allegedly a shell casing that was found inside the car. So indicative of the shot that was fired at the officer during the pursuit. So now let's go to the aspect of the media saying that this was an unarmed black man. It's very easy to say someone was unarmed after all the dust settles and you can kind of walk in after the fact and there's no more bullets flying. There's no one running with a potential weapon. The guy who just shot at you, there's nothing, right? There's nothing. Now, I'll ask you this, and I pose this question. If you're in your car and someone is following you in their car and they reach out their window, you see a gun come out their window, and they fire a shot at your car. And it's a crazy person. They're chasing you, okay? You don't know what's going on. But they pull a gun out, and they stick it out the window, and they shoot at you. Now, you pull over, maybe you crash your car, whatever, and you get out, and you decide you're going to start running. So you get out of your car, you start running, because this person's crazy, and maybe you're trying to run to a convenience store or a public place to get help. And you see the person pull over, and the person is running after you. Now, your immediate assessment is that this person that just shot at you while you were driving, crazy, now you're running from your car and this person is running after you. Your immediate assessment of survival is, this guy's got a gun and he's running after me with a gun. 100%. I don't care who you are. You would most definitely be thinking, the guy shot at me while I'm driving and now he's chasing me on foot. He's got a gun. You would assume he's armed. Now you put it in this scenario where the police were chasing the guy and the guy shot at the police officer, and now the guy gets out of his car, is running. Why wouldn't you think he still had a gun on him and may shoot you? He tried to shoot you while you're in the car. Why wouldn't you think he would not be armed and may turn and try to shoot you again? Just like in the first scenario, right? So all these officers had a knowledge that he shot at the officer during the pursuit. So they're all under the impression that he is still armed. They don't know. So to call him unarmed after he had shot at somebody, it's a little disingenuous. At the moment, after the fact, they realized he was unarmed. Now, would any of those officers fired a single round if they knew 100% guaranteed that the gun was in the car and he was running without a weapon? Well, yeah, of course. In the Monday morning situation, you can look at that and say, yeah, none of the officers would have fired. If they knew he didn't have a gun and they knew the gun was in the car, or maybe if he had never fired the shot at the police officer in the first place, maybe they wouldn't have been so amped up to believe he had a weapon on him and he was armed. Maybe if there was no shot fired during the pursuit. So for the media to say he was unarmed is not true. He was armed. He was armed in his vehicle and he shot at the police. Now let's go back to the shot at the police. Now this is something that came out very early on and it was confirmed with the surveillance video. You see the flash coming out the driver's side window of the car. However, the media, in telling the story, almost in every story I read, is leaving out the fact that he fired a shot at the police officer during the pursuit. Why are they leaving that out? That's not a small detail to leave out, especially with the way this ended. Why are they leaving that out? It's a very important detail. So, shot at the police, and it led to what happened, okay? Very important detail. You know, a lot of people are talking about how, the media is portraying Mr. Walker out to be like a saint and a good kid and all this stuff. Listen, we all know, those of you watching this video that have never had any involvement with the police and are good people, listen, we're not dumb, right? We're not fools. We know, we understand that good people, the definition of a good person is not running from the police, shooting at the police while running from the police, and then bailing out of your car with a black mask on, and then turning and facing the police with your hands by your waist, and then raising your arm up, swinging your arm up while facing the police. Everyone knows that a good person doesn't do that, right? Maybe you make a mistake. Maybe you do something bad. Maybe you do something wrong. Maybe you do something horrific, like that man who shot the people in Highland Park at that parade, right? But a lot of people have said, you know, Jayland Walker gets 60 shots, right? They're saying his body got shot 60 times out of the maybe potential 90 bullets that were fired. But the man who they arrested for the Highland Park, Illinois, July 4th parade shooting didn't get any bullets. Well, if you look at the video of the police stopping that car and arresting that subject, you're going to see something completely different.
It's a shooter. Yeah.
There was a pursuit, and during that pursuit, the young man they arrested didn't shoot at the police. It came to a stop at a traffic light. At the traffic light, the man did not try to jump out the passenger side window and run. He didn't run from the police and then turn quickly toward them. No, he listened to their commands. He exited the vehicle as directed. They were on the PA, on the mic, giving him the directions. They told him to get out of the car. He got out of the car. They told him to put his hands up. He put his hands up. They said, lift your shirt up. He lifted his shirt up. They said, lie on the ground, put your arms out. He laid on the ground and put his arms out. And then the officers walked up and locked him up. I assure you, after these officers who went to stop this person, if he did anything even remotely close to what Mr. Walker did, I assure you he would have met the same fate. Because this man just murdered 6, maybe now 7, or I don't know how many people have passed away since, right? 24 injured, right? So he didn't do that. Now, people are saying, oh, and of course, he was white, right? He was white. So people are saying, oh, look, the white kid gets arrested by a dozen cops, and there's not a single bullet fired. Well, the white kid acted completely differently than the black kid. So how can you compare apples to apples? Now, I will tell you this. If that white kid in Illinois was stopped by the police and he just got out of the car and ran and then turned at the officers and lifted his arm up and then turned back and kept running, and the officers didn't fire a round, I would be the first person to say, hold up, wait a second. What the hell is going on here? But that's not what happened. That's not what happened, right? We've seen in many of these cases where people compare black men getting shot by the police to white men not getting shot and getting arrested and put in handcuffs, and everyone's like, oh, look at the difference. Well, let's look at the actions. What did they do, right? What did they do? Different actions have a different response and a different result, right? There were things when I was growing up that I had a sister, right? She was a little bit older than me. And there were certain times that I would do something and she would do something. She would respond a certain way and there was no punishment. I would respond a certain way and I'd get smacked. But I responded differently. Now, if I got smacked and I was responding the same exact way my sister responded, I would be like, Mom, what the heck's going on? But no, it was always different. It was always my sister responded in maybe a more cordial fashion, and I was a little bit more animated or angry or whatever in my response, and my mom gave me the slap, right? My sister, now someone from the outside looking in would never say, oh, ma'am, why did you not slap the girl, and why did you slap the boy? Because they would see the girl didn't respond the way the boy did. The boy responded in a way that warranted a slap. He got the slap, right? We've all seen it with parenting and children. So this is a apples to orange situation where how these young men both responded when stopped by the police. One ran, one shot at the police during the chase and then bailed from the vehicle and then turned to the police, and one pulled over, put his hands up, gave up, and laid down on the ground and didn't shoot at the police during the course of the pursuit. There you go, night and day difference. So something else that you need to notice while the media tries to put some certain spin on this. Now, clearly, you don't ever want to see a situation end like this, especially if it's a young person who, for what appears unknown reason, decides to take this action. Why? And like, so the other thing that people are speculating is who's driving around at midnight with a black ski mask on. No one seems to be, I mean, the media seems to be leaving out that little detail that he had a black ski mask on as he jumped out of the car. So one can assume that while driving at high speed and shooting at the police, he wasn't donning this mask on. One can assume he had the mask on while he was driving and this happened. I can't imagine he put this mask on sometime during this melee. Maybe he did, but it's hard to imagine. But why are you bailing? Why are you running from the police? And then when you finally stop, why are you jumping out of your car wearing a black mask on and turning toward the police? Now, some reports have said that they shot an unarmed person running away. I've seen the term running away in multiple reports. So let's talk about that, running away. If you are truly running away, we had a situation in South Carolina many years ago where a man was truly running away from the police officer, and the police officer 1,000% shot that black man in the back, right? And that officer is in jail for murder right now, as he should be. But in this situation, you have someone running away, but then in the darkness, turned towards you. It's on video, and there's the still photos. We'll loop that in where he turns toward him. And then you see the arm come up. Was the arm swinging from running out of fear? We don't know, right? But for the media and the different outlets to say that he was shot while running away, it's clear as day in the video that he is running away. And the second he turns toward the officers, and you can see he's facing the officers, his arms are out, and his hands are kind of by his midsection, that's the moment that the shots start getting shot, okay? So you hear it in the video, and it's clear as day. So for anyone to dispute the video evidence, to say they shot him while he was running away, it's just false. It's just simply not true. They shot him while he turned and faced them, and they were all under the impression that he was armed, and he was armed. He was armed in the vehicle. So those are some of the things. I know there's a couple other questions I got. There's multiple, I think there's a total of 12 or 13 body cam different videos that are out there from the different officers that responded and were involved in this. Of course, they're all on administrative leave. Some people are talking about, why are they on paid administrative leave? Well, listen, you're innocent until proven guilty. So you're not going to suspend officers without pay until they're proven that they did something wrong. And then at that point, it would switch over to suspended without pay until they're ultimately terminated. So that's why they're suspended with pay. You're innocent until proven guilty. So we're going to try to post in as many clips post-production of the flash coming out the window of the driver's side vehicle of Jayland Walker's vehicle. And then the pursuit, we had some stills that we were able to capture from some of the video of the pursuit and the foot pursuit. So we're gonna have that looped in as wherever we can throughout this video. The team does a good job with that. But at the end of the day, I got to tell you, it's really, really troubling to see how this is all spun in the media and how it's made out to be like this completely innocent person who was like a choir boy that was minding his own business, just, driving down the road, and he was executed by the police. The details of shooting at the police, fleeing the police, shooting at the police while fleeing them, and then running. You have a weapon in your car loaded, and then running from the police in a mask, and then turning toward the police in a threatening manner. All these little details really matter when you're telling a story. And the fact that so many of them are being left out is troubling. It's truly troubling. And, of course, in a situation like this, you never want to see someone lose their life over, like, this was a traffic violation, right? So you're going to have people say, oh, he was killed over a traffic stop. That's false. That's just simply not true. If he was killed over a traffic stop, it would be the police pulled him over for a busted taillight. Officer got out of the car, went up, shot the guy, executed him before he could even give his paperwork over, right? That would be he got killed for a taillight out. However, Mr. Walker was killed because of a series of bad decisions he made. Decisions he did not have to make. No one forced him to make these decisions. These are a series of bad decisions that he chose to make, which led to ultimately getting shot by 8 officers. One of the officers, obviously a black man. So, you're trying to make this a race thing. Let's talk about how many bullets the black officer fired. No one's really talking about that. No one's really talking about that. Why? Because fear is fear. I don't care if you're black, white, Hispanic, Asian. If you're chasing someone and you suspect they're armed and they turn around and face you and grab for their waist, I don't care what race you are, what color you are, what gender, what sex you identify as, whatever. If you got a gun, you're going to shoot them because you don't want to get shot. It's survival. We're humans. It's biology, right? So it's not he got killed because of a brake light out. He got killed because of his actions that he did not have to do. I don't know if there's a black man in America right now that would, if you went up to him on the street, just go up to him on the street and say, listen, I'm going to give you a scenario. And let me ask you if you think this would be a good idea or a bad idea right now in today's society. You get pulled over. Option A is you pull over, you put your hands on the wheel, you wait for the officer to come up. Officer's like, hey, you ran that red light, you got a brake light out. And you say, oh man, officer, it's 12:30, I'm just trying to get home, leaving work, whatever. I apologize. Okay, whatever. Funds are tight. I'm trying to get the brake light fixed, whatever. That's option A. Option B, sir, on the street is officer tries to pull you over for maybe a running the red light and a brake light out, and you run, you hit the gas and you run, and then while speeding and fleeing from, you reach out the window and shoot at the police, and then when you pull your car over, you don't stop, you actually let the car roll and you bail out wearing a ski mask and you start running, and then while you're running, instead of just keep running, you turn and face the cops with your hands by your waist. Which scenario, sir, Mr. Black Man in America, which scenario do you think you would survive in, and which scenario do you think might get you killed or would most likely get you killed? I think if you ask any black man in America, or ask any black woman in America, which scenario would lead to them surviving and which scenario would almost 100% lead to them dying, they would tell you that scenario B would 100% lead to them dying, most likely. Yet here we are. We have someone making the series of bad decisions, knowing, unless there was some sort of, compromised mental state, knowing that this was going to end very badly. End very badly. You don't ever want to see a 25-year-old man lose his life. But at some point, you have to say to yourself, well, how many bad decisions can you make in a row with 0 consequences? 0. You don't want to see the death of a young man, but then you also have to say, well, when the scenario is turned and you see the officer get killed by the suspect that they were chasing, no one really says anything. There's no riots. There's no looting. There's no nothing, right? That happens pretty much, I would say, at this point, every week, right? A police officer is chasing a suspect, or a police officer pulls over a suspect, and they shoot and kill the police officer. And the officer never fired a shot. It's just a foot pursuit. And the person turns around and boom, shoots the cop. In those scenarios, you never hear about, oh, no. The guy gets locked up, charged with murder for killing a police officer, and no one says a word. It'd be nice if the media at some point would say, well, this is a similar situation where a man was running from the police and he turned around and he had a weapon and he shot the officer and the officer died. And now this is the scenario with Jayland Walker, very similar here, as you can see, folks. So officers have a split second to make a decision here. And if he did have that gun that he left on the seat, which they had no idea he left it on the seat because he jumped out of the car while it was rolling, if they don't make that split second decision, well, then they're dead, like the officer in this video here. No one talks about that, right? No one talks about that. So these are things that we're seeing in these stories that are coming out, and a lot more is going to be coming out, but very highly disturbing, highly disturbing. And, as more facts come out, we'll bring them to you, and I'll do my best to weed through everything. I'm trying to talk to officers on the ground and officers with inside knowledge about some of what's going on, but it's very hard, obviously, when things like this and situations like this are very fluid. So, but that's what we got right now, folks. And it's sad to see the media doing what they're doing. It appears to me the only reason you do that is to further divide people. And one thing I will note is that Jayland Walker's family is calling for peaceful protests. They don't want to see the city burn down. They don't want to see looting and rioting. So God bless them. Obviously, you're dealing with a tremendous loss right now. But it was, in my mind, incredible that they actually took the time to say that on the news. And, my heart goes out to them, obviously, as they're grieving right now. But, facts are facts. Truth is truth. It's all on video. And there's still photos to back everything up. And at some point, we gotta start living in the realm of reason and reality here, and start looking at what these situations really are. And they're life and death situations where you have a millisecond to respond, and it's easy to respond and say that this should have been done after the fact. After the fact, when you saw the weapon on the passenger seat. After the fact, it's very easy to say, well, why'd you shoot him? The gun was in the car. It's so easy to say all these things. So easy. And it's very easy to leave very key details out. But we're smarter than that. We're not dumb. And we know what they're doing. And we know what this is about. So be better, be smarter, and listen to all the facts before you make your decision. Instead of, you can just go with the flow, go with the narrative that they want you to believe. But I'll tell you that the people who probably want that the least are the people who are suffering from situations like this. And you and I know who that is. So think about that. Okay, folks, thanks for watching. We'll bring you more as more information comes in. And stay tuned. We're definitely going to talk about the Highland Park, Illinois shooting coming up as well. Thank you. We'll see you next time.